Hello, Floss Tube, and thank you for checking me out. This is the Stitching Owl, and if I was Steph of Just Keep Stitching, I would be saying 1 + 1 = 2. She has a much more complicated math problem to create for how many they have been doing. I am really pleased to be here, and I want to thank those of you who watched my first video. You have no idea how ridiculously happy I was to have 4 comments to actually reply to. So thank you. I'd also like to thank my youngest child, Derica, for helping me in the background with regards to the electronic setup and everything that might be confusing for YouTube usage for me. And I'd also like to thank Evan, my second child, who is the creator of my Stitching Owl logo. The last time we were together, I was talking about Stitch Camp 2023 that was put on, actually not was, is put on by the Colorado Cross Stitcher. This particular month, August 2023, the challenge was to do something new. And I wasn't entirely sure which direction I was going to go with my stitch. Well, it turned out I made a decision, and I decided to do a block party by Hands On Design. This is called Woof. I love 3-dimensional stitches. The challenge of trying to figure out how the stitch is actually going to go together, and oh my goodness, how much stuffing we are going to need to make it look as good as the one on the front of the pattern. It's amazing. Right at the moment, how far am I? Well, this morning I was able, and I've got it caught. I've got to finish. I have to work on the fully finish next. So this is my sides. This is my top, and this basic square right here in the middle is my bottom. So I'm now going to need to cut those sections apart and stitch them together. I had a lot of fun doing these Smyrna crosses here. I will say that in this part right here, there was some spontaneous creating going on. Really, there are a few colors that just ended up not happening. For some reason, I thought all 4 dogs matched, and when I truly look at that pattern, no, they do not. Like in the real world, a litter of puppies can have many different colorings. But for mine, all 4 puppies are the same except for their bandanas. Now I have gone online to handsondesign.biz to download the instructions for making it into the 3-dimensional square, the block, and ultimately it will be a pin cushion, though I'm not sure I'll put pins in it. So I'm really appreciative of the fact that there is a simple PDF that I can print off and keep handy, because I know this won't be the only block party that I actually do. So good headway on that. And the nice thing is that each of the little, like about a 2-inch section, I could do about 2 inches per day and work my way across. So overall, it was a fun stitch that didn't take too long. Now, one of the other things that I spoke of in my first floss tube was my Blooming Tiny Town by Heart and Hand, and I said that I was going to make it into a drum, my first drum. Now I have to say I'm so glad that I had today's date, the 15th of the month, because I'm going to do this the first and the middle of the month. I'm glad I set that goal for myself, because it would have been very easy to say, that looks complicated. But I had said I was going to do it, so I did. And I have to say, I'm very pleased with how it turned out. It does take an awful lot of polyfill. I do have some poly pellets in there as well. And these are the mini palms of Lady Dot Create. The top and the bottom are a simple fat quarter from Walmart that just happened to suit the pinks that were in my blooming tiny town. So again, this turned out to not take near as long as I thought it would, but I am very, very appreciative of the video that Vonna Pfeiffer did that allowed me to actually get it basically right the first time. Now, I did watch her more than once to make sure that I wasn't going to mess it up, but overall, there is no glue anywhere in here. It is all stitched. So I'm super happy with that. And again, I'm going to make sure that I go on to do another tiny town. I think my next one will be the Halloween one, because it'll take a little bit of time for the newest Harvest Tiny Town to get to Canada. My other fully finished since the last time we were together, I only have one ornament today, believe it or not. And this ornament is actually a small section of an Owl Forest embroidery free chart that you can get online called 100 Owls. Now, I'm sure you're not surprised with the name like this, Stitching Owl, that I actually am going to be stitching owls now and then. This is how I actually made my ornament. So this is just the great horned owl. I admit to doing a few changes with colors. I did insert some pink for the buds, and then in here I just made it very, very light coloring green and pink, and then I sewed seed beads around the edge. So for me, I was really pleased to have in that first fortnight between videos a completion that was an owl. So this is done on 25 count pewter Lagana, and it is 1/1. I think I forgot to say that my blooming tiny town was on 32 count vintage wood Lagana 2/2. Okay, now my first video, I got all the way to the end, said goodbye, and realized I didn't do any whips. You would have seen the owl half done, and you would have seen a couple of other things as well. So today, what do I have for my whips? Well, I mentioned last time that the way I got back excited about doing cross stitch was by making a stocking for my father and having it being able to be put up on the wall of his nursing home room. In the nursing homes, we have to be careful not to have things that can be bumped by nurses who are being as helpful as they possibly can be and having things crash to the floor. So by doing a stocking, I was able to make it so that it just simply went back up on the peg, even if it fell. Now, unfortunately, when I went hunting today, I could not find the magazine that I got this out of. It was a Stony Creek Seasons Stitching magazine. where this was the one stocking that they had in it. So as you can see, I do love the animals, and there's lots of dogs in here, paw prints. This looks like it's material. No, that is stitched. The Stony Creek was really neat in that we tweeted two colors together here to give the feeling of the mix of the warp and weft threads that are in a plaid. So I was particularly happy about that. My mother happened to have some gold piping on hand that she didn't know what to do with. So I said, why, I'll take that. I did make it into a fully functioning stocking, although he didn't really want Santa to come. He just wanted to look at the stocking. So this was the first thing that got me back into stitching a couple of years ago. Now, one of the floss tubers that I particularly enjoy watching is the Fanciful Flamingo. So, when I was flipping through Etsy, I discovered a stocking. This is definitely a work in progress. I do not have the bottom done. But does that not make you think about the Fanciful Flamingo? Now, I find this one really quite funny because it's got some opposites sitting right here. We have a palm tree that's obviously from warmer climates mixed with snowflakes and snow mounds. I just find the humor behind this particular stitch a lot of fun. There is a group of 4 stockings, and I think I will continue to go on to do other stockings. Now, in this particular one, I am doing this on a gray fabric flare, but it really doesn't matter, does it? Because this is full coverage. Now, when I go to do the next one, I'm thinking I'm going to choose a material that will be the color of this background here, and I'm not going to stitch that part of it. So I've had a lot of fun with that. Right at the moment, I can't remember the Etsy creator who did that one, so I will put it into the information below. Now, one of the things that you're going to find I do is once I've started stitching on a piece, I never fold it up again. As somebody who has quilted for a long time, one of the things that I was taught was that fabric has memory. That's why that one fold that is from the bolt is so hard to get rid of. We can put starch and all sorts of things on it, and many times it comes back. When I was younger, I was doing many stitches on 14 count, and I did fold my work, and some of those folds have ever so slowly come back over time. Now, we are talking 40 years, but I would prefer to press this and then roll it after that. Another stocking that I have done from last year is this Cooler design. Cooler being K-O-O-L-E-R. So it's not dogs this time, but you can definitely see that I like the forest animals too. So one of my goals is to have this made into a stocking before we get to Christmas this year. Now, the particular book that I got this out of is a fabulous resource for people that like stockings, because there is quite a few stockings in here. So there's dogs, that's the one I did. This is a bunch of Christmas ornaments. Father Christmas as a bear, Santa Claus, and then a primitive Santa. Now there are more in here, and one of the other ones that is in here is one that is cats. Now I started it, this would be my oldest whip, and I started it soon after I did the stocking for my father. I think that I ordered my Ada cloth off of Amazon and went, oh good, I think it's going to be just the perfect size. The thing is, I'm not sure I want to complete this. As a matter of fact, I think I am going to UFO it. And some of you are going to go, oh my word, you've got so much done. But the material continues to be coarse and the holes are so big. So this is the Donna Cooler cat stocking. You can see that I've had it rolled up for a while. So it is pretty, and where you're seeing it now, you're thinking, my goodness, she better finish that. But when I come in closer, I don't have to be too close for you to see how big these Ada holes are. And it's just not the look that I do anymore. So I'm thinking I'm going to UFO it, but I'm going to say, give your opinion. Let me know whether you think that you would finish it and maybe donate it somewhere, or whether you would UFO and start all over again on some Lagana. I happen to like even weave. So that's my dilemma of the day. Now, what else have I been doing? Well, I have enjoyed starting to work on my first trading card. Laura at Stitching by the Shore has a trading card challenge where on the theme of autumn, you're to make a small that is specifically 2.5 by 3.5 and send it to her for October the 1st. And then she'll go through all of the sends, and each of us that send in a trading card will get a trading card back. If we send in 2, she says we'll get 2 back. So my first experiment for autumn is this. Now, what I've done is I've frayed the edges so that I can put this on a piece of, well, it's a board. It's actually going to be comic board stock that I'm going to use for my 2.5 by 3.5. This particular pattern is sort of the Tiny Modernist. So the Tiny Modernist has this particular pattern called Seasonal Trees. And what I did was I took this guy for autumn and I skinnied him up. What we have here is a very round tree, and that wasn't going to fit into my 2.5 by 3.5. So what I have been doing is I would stitch, and then I would take this window and I would put the window over top of this to find out when I got something that was approximately the right size. I didn't want to fill the whole 2.5 by 3.5. I'm not thinking that I want to wrap the material around. So that meant I wanted to leave a little bit of a margin on top, bottom, and sides. Then with my sewing machine, I sewed at a small stitch all the way around at 2 threads outside the edge of the stitching line. And in that way, if this frays further, it won't fray farther than the actual stitching line. Now this has also been 1/1 on pewter even weave, and I believe it's Lugana. So I'm hoping to get a second one done before I send these off to Laura. I'd encourage everybody, have a look in your different projects, because there's so many things. For instance, taking something like that out of a tiny town could be made into a trading card. Some of the owls, this one doesn't quite fit the way I wanted, but some of the other owls actually are smaller and would make good trading card pictures. So there are options out there without purchasing any new patterns. So one of the things that I discovered this year since January is that I actually really like full coverage projects. That's one of the reasons why I jumped into my flamingo Christmas stocking and just stitched every stitch, even though I really didn't have to. This particular full coverage is a Northern Lights off of 2x2 Stitch Art on Etsy. I saw Laura again at Stitching by the Shore stitching this one on 18 count, and I decided I wanted to do it on 20 count. Now when I'm doing a full coverage, I realize that some people are thinking I made it harder by putting it on a dark Aida. This is an Aida 20, a coal. However, I wasn't confident that when I was putting in all of the black DMC 310 that nothing would show through, and if I had a white background, that it might show through more than I wanted it to. So I put it on black so that there was no chance that there would be any influence on the colors. I also found that this particular material got softer and softer as I worked with it, and as such I was able to do the sewing method. This took me 3 weeks to do. Now I enjoyed this one so much that I purchased a couple more from 2x2 Stitch Art, and I have completed one more. This was my April finish, and again it took 3 weeks. So there was a lot of dark colors in this one, the blues and the blacks, and again I did it on the coal 20 count Aida. I figure when nothing is going to be showing it, the Aida is really easy for me to stitch on. I did not grid, and I did not use my iPad. I simply printed out the pattern and took out highlighters and started highlighting as I went. I am at the moment interested in a start along that is going to happen in September, when people are grabbing patterns from Stitches So Beautiful, which has many full coverage options. So many I haven't decided yet again. I can't decide which one I like the best. I am tempted to do an owl, but there are some really beautiful pictures that are not owls, so I will have to let you know what I choose. When I'm stitching, I'm watching Floss Tube on my iPad. I don't have 2 iPads, I only have one. So therefore, I suspect that even with a larger project than these guys are, I will still be using paper. Unless I convince my husband that I can borrow his tablet every night. Do you think he'd let me do that? That way I could watch all my favorite floss tubes at the same time I am using probably Markup XP. So that's what's been keeping me busy since I was last with you. My Stitch Card Autumn, the Flamingo Stocking, finishing my Blooming Tiny Town, and finishing my owl. I had to stitch half of this and then fully finish it. And then, of course, my block party. So what are my new goals? Well, one of the things that I've decided is that I want to challenge myself to embrace more designers. I have some favorites and I'm never going to stop stitching them, but I do want to stretch out further. So I'd like to take each month, choose one new general designer and one new Etsy designer to purchase a pattern of and give it a start. Now, some of the designs might be smalls so that I don't end up overwhelmed with the amount of whips. I'm somebody who does like to finish, and I think if I choose a large Stitch is So Beautiful, that's going to be the one thing that I just sort of carry from month to month, and that the other things that I'm working on, I'm going to want to be able to work towards a finish. So I'll have to think about that. Having said that, I have the opportunity to go to Jacob Palooza in my hometown of London, Ontario in October. There's going to be 2 weekends where Jacob from Modern Folk Embroidery will be in town. And I think it would be highly appropriate for me to be stitching some Modern Folk Embroidery and having it to show at that point, even if it's not fully finished. I have my eye on quite a few, so I'm going to have to narrow it down to 1 or 2 patterns that I would like to do. But I'm really quite excited about the opportunity. It will be my very first retreat. I admit that for myself, I am likely to only do retreats that are within a fairly close distance. It would be so much fun to fly in and see so many of the Floss Tubers that I feel like I know them, and meet them at things like StitchCon. But for me, I think the price of the ticket and the hotel is going to continue to go into supporting my 3 children as they learn how to be independent adults and more patterns. So I'm super lucky that there's actually one here in town. So that's that's a new goal that I have set for myself, and I'll be able to show you on my September 1st Floss Tube at least 1, if not 2 or 3 patterns that I have picked from new to me designers. Now, I want to take a moment to say thank you to Stitching by the Shore Laura for hosting a Zoom on World Cross Stitch Day. I met some fantastic ladies, and through our chatting, I was able to say, hey, who else is doing floss tubes? So I'm going to say I was kind of awestruck because Contented Needleworker Kim was there. Now she has 61 videos already, and I had watched a number of them. So it was quite interesting because my iPad just had people like 1.5 inches big because there was quite a few people here. I didn't recognize her. And then I looked her up that night and went, of course. So it was such a pleasure to actually be in the same Zoom room, even though I didn't know it at the time. Hibernation Stitcher was another friend that I met that day. Now she isn't counting off her videos in the same way, but she has quite a few and a lot of really good stitching to have to look at. I enjoyed her personality and the flow of her videos. Crafty Cat Stitcher has 83 videos out already, and I have to say her taste matches mine. We didn't overlap any patterns, but wow, I can see that there's some of them that she's been doing that I'm going to have to go out to purchase. And then there was also Shailene's Creativity Room, where she has at least 27 videos. I was only able to find some that were like 3 or 6 years old, so I'm not sure whether there are some fresh floss tubes out there for us to watch, but certainly the ones that are up have value and entertainment value. The other floss tuber I'd like to say, wow, is Lady Huzzah Presents. Now she's early, she's got 4 videos out, but her knowledge is amazing. And the pieces that she did and was showing off, particularly in this 4th video that just came up, everybody should go have a look and to listen to her stories, because all of the pieces were designed by the same designer whose first name was Mary. And I think that every one of us would just learn so much from that video. At the same time, we just drool because they're so beautiful. So today, as the last thing that I want to do, I want to show you actually something that is not cross stitch, and unlike last week, it is not quilting. Now let's see if I can do this without. This is the cat that I grew up with. He lasted about 22 years. This is a pencil drawing by my father, and my father also framed it. I lost my father less than a year ago, so when my mother recently asked me if I would like to pick out one of his drawings, I said yes, I would like Tiger. We were not particularly creative with how we named our cat. He had stripes, so he was Tiger. And I think that is it for today. I'd like to thank you all for coming and dropping in. I'm looking forward to seeing you again next time. And remember, to all the makers out there, go make something and make yourself happy.